many of our members believe that No Child Left Behind, specifically its accountability formula, the so-called adequate yearly progress formula, is designed to put public education in a negative light, to show that public schools far and wide across the country are failing, and therefore pave the way for a more aggressive expansion of vouchers in private schools. I don't think it's that simple. I think some people in Congress had that intent. I think a lot of other people in Congress who voted for it didn't understand what it was going to do and how it was going to work. And I think other people who were close to the process of drafting and enacting that law really thought it would have more positive effects. So I don't think it was one big vast conspiracy to set up public education, but I do think that some of its backers did and do have that motive, and I think it could end up having that effect. And I think when people see that 2/3 of the schools in America within a couple or a few years are going to be rated as failing according to the federal government, there's going to be a lot of people saying, what? That doesn't make sense. Our local schools, by anybody else's measure, are not failing. What are they talking about? Those people in Washington are totally out of touch. I think you're going to begin to get that kind of reaction, and that may help mitigate, the potential for it causing people to lose confidence in public schools. I think it just won't be credible the more this process plays itself out.
With public schools threatened by imminent closure, No Child Left Behind and its promise to put low-performing schools on a blacklist has brought with it a degree of controversy unmatched by any congressional legislation since 1947, when Ohio Senator Taft put forth his co-authored Taft-Hartley Labor Act that put a brake on strikes by unions. There are teachers, parents, school administrators, university professors, and political leaders who say that public education cannot survive under the new system of wall-to-wall proficiency testing that has come in under the No Child Left Behind. Questions have even been raised about the reliability of the tests themselves as a measurement of student ability.
Ohio is very much bought into testing. When we talk to folks at the State Department of Education, they just believe very strongly that they're creating good tests and that it's giving good information, and they really have a difficult time seeing the counter-argument that perhaps the methods being used to make these tests are not that good, and perhaps the data that's coming from them doesn't tell you very much about kids. So it's difficult to get anybody to listen to the counter-arguments in Ohio, to be frank. The thing about No Child Left Behind is that it is very dependent on proficiency or standardized test data. And what we found in our study is the industry is just simply not up to the task yet of providing the kind of data that will give you good information about kids and about schools and about school districts and how everybody's performing. When we looked in depth at how the actual tests are created, we found extreme problems with giving a fair representation of how kids are doing. Here's the bottom line problem. Test creation in this country has evolved largely from the IQ. The IQ and the SAT and standardized testing through the years has had a primary goal of sorting kids out. A test like the SAT, what they want to know, or achievement tests that we took as kids, like the California Achievement Test or the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, what those tests want to say is they're trying to tell you who are the most intelligent kids and who are the kids who are having the most difficulty and who are the kids in the middle. And in order to have a test give you that information, you have to stylize it in such a way that there are lots of tricky questions so that you hopefully get sort of the high IQ kids. The kids who are good at solving those kinds of puzzles and those kinds of tricks tend to get the high scores. There are not going to be very many kids who solve the really hardest questions on an SAT or an Iowa Test of Basic Skills. And that's what the test creators want. They want a small number of kids at the top, a small number of kids at the bottom, and a lot of kids in the middle. Sometimes you hear this called the bell-shaped curve. The problem with that test, there's nothing wrong with creating a test like that. It does give you information about kids. It will tell you what kids have tremendous strengths, and it will tell you what kids have major deficiencies, and it can help a teacher figure out how to address those. What's dangerous is when you take a test that's created like that and say all kids should be able to pass this test. The test is specifically designed so that all kids cannot pass.
If No Child Left Behind is an idea whose time has come, the consensus in favor of its rigorous new testing requirements has been far from overwhelming. While nearly unanimous praise for No Child Left Behind has been heard from the leadership of both the Democrats and the Republicans, a dissenting view has become more and more vocal and is starting to be heard. I decided to visit Ohio, where the biggest portion of the state educational budget of any state in the country is already going to privately run charter schools. My goal was to put some of the growing number of questioners of No Child Left Behind in Ohio on camera and let them make their case in this No Child Left Behind report. Ohio, once one of America's leading industrial states, now finds itself at the bottom in many categories. Along with its industry, Ohio education is lagging behind as well.
Well, actually, Ohio gets a better grade for its educational opportunities, or outputs, I should say, as compared to what we put into it. The national rankings in Ohio are deplorable, if you will, when it comes to looking at all the kinds of things that Ohio puts into education versus, again, what we get out of it. For example, if we were to look at some national rankings, that Ohio is last in the nation in terms of its school facilities. We rank 49th in the nation in terms of graduation rates for African Americans. We are 39th in terms of graduates for colleges and universities. Ranked 42nd in the nation in terms of the amount of money that we put into our universities and colleges. And somewhere in the neighborhood of about 36, maybe 35 now in terms of the K through 12 funding. And first in the nation with support for private schools with public dollars. So see, there's a real diversity there in terms of where we are, but in most cases, Ohio is at the bottom of the hill when it comes to what we have invested in education versus what we get out of it.
Since 1997, Ohio's state legislators have ignored no less than 4 decisions of the Ohio Supreme Court requiring replacement of the property tax-based educational funding system that has led to a gap between glittering new suburban schools and rundown rural and inner-city schools that is one of the nation's most notorious examples of inequality of educational opportunity.
The Supreme Court of Ohio, as it's currently constituted, will not enforce the right of children to a thorough and efficient system, as is the case law. They will not enforce a remedy, even though there's declaratory judgment on 4 occasions that the system is unconstitutional. So, as we are here today, our school funding system has been unconstitutional for about 7.5 years, and the court now refuses to accept jurisdiction or retain jurisdiction, refuses to enforce the matter. And so we have an ongoing unconstitutional school funding system. The court has given the state no guidelines, no timeline, and no sanctions if the state doesn't fix the system. So it's a rather egregious situation. It's a violation of the rule of law. wherein the state has been ordered to fix the system. The state refuses to fix the system, and yet the court won't enforce its own order.